to the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you something a little bit different on our normal Studio Monday posts. I'm going to be sharing 10 quick tips for organizing your craft space. These are tips that I use in my craft room every day, and I thought they might be helpful to you to help get your craft room organized and easier to work in. My first tip is to organize your desktop with a turntable. I actually use 3 of these on my studio table because I have a pretty large table area to work on. And I find that they are so easy to use and very helpful for keeping things organized, and also a lot of things handy for me right there on the top of the table. The turntable I use is by Interdesign. This is very similar to some of their other Interdesign products, such as the fridge bins, which are very popular for storing stamps. And I find these are really easy to incorporate into your craft space. I use them to store my Copic markers. So here you can see I've got all my Copic markers in all the different colors. I have them sorted by color type. So I've got reds and pinks, yellows and oranges, greens, blues, and then purples. And I find this to be a really easy way for me to store my Copic markers because I can rotate this turntable until I get to the color group that I want, and then I can find the marker color that I'm looking for. Now you'll notice I don't have my grays or browns in these turntables. I actually store those in a second turntable because I have almost every Copic marker and I want to be able to store them by color family. So in this particular case, since I have all of these sorted by pinks, yellows, blues, and so on and so forth, I needed to have a space to be able to put my browns and grays. So bring in turntable number 2. Turntable number 2 features not only my browns and gray Copic markers, but it also features a few other different types of products. So I'll go ahead and show you those in a second. For the gray Copics, I keep all the grays together. I don't sort them by toner or warm gray. I just keep them all in one big group. Now, another way I use this is to store my zig markers. Now, I have a few more zigs than this, but I have them over with my project that I'm working on right now. So I don't have them all stored in this container. I have almost all the zigs as well, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of how many markers can actually fit into this compartment. Now, another way I find this turntable really handy is to store things that I use all the time. So I've got like my distress sprayer, my glossy accents, my Hero Arts Ultra Clean. I also keep my powder tool in here for when I'm doing embossing. Little bits and pieces like that really is handy to have right on hand and not have to go digging through a drawer or having it laying out on my desk. I can keep it in the turntable. It keeps everything nice and clean, and it's easy to access. Now, I find that storing my most used embossing powders in this compartment is really handy as well, because I can easily access the ones that I use all the time, and then the ones that I don't use quite as often, I keep in a container on a shelf in my studio. This is a really great way to get a lot of use out of these turntables. I'm not going to show it here in this video, but on the other turntable that I have, I store things like tools, pens, my distress crayons, things like that. Now, another organization tip I have for you today is sequin storage. Sequin storage can be difficult because if you have a large collection of sequins, it's hard to know what you're going to do with them all and how to keep them organized well. Well, I find using this bead container, which we carry here at Simon Says Stamp, really handy for using to store my sequins. Here's a look at what my sequin storage container looks like. Now, because this is my job, I do have a lot of product, and sequins is something I have a lot of. So you'll notice here I have this full container of sequins, and I have it labeled because these are all Pretty Pink Posh sequins, but I'll go ahead and show you in a second how I label a container that isn't as full with one company. So the lid is lockable, so you can lock this on top of the container, and it's really handy. This label I made with the Brother label maker, and it's really easy to go ahead and just print a label and stick it right on top of the lid. Helps me know what is in each box. Now, this container has over 80 different compartments, and each individual compartment has a lockable lid that allows you to keep the sequins from falling all over the place. See that little latch there? That snaps right onto the side of our compartment and holds the sequins in place. So you could shake this around, drop it, anything, and the sequins would stay inside that container the entire time. Here's another look at the sequin container. I really love how easy these are to use, and I label each of these sequin containers with the color of the sequins that I have in there. It just helps me keep things organized and know which color is what. So that's one of my sequin containers. I have another sequin container here that I use for a variety of other different sequins. In this one, you can see I have sequins from Neat and Tangled, Lucy's Cards, and the Ton Stamps. I have this labeled on the box so that way I know which sequin companies I have in this container. And as you can see, I also have these kind of grouped in certain areas. So like the ones on the left, those are the neat and tangled sequins. The ones in the middle are the ones from Lucy's Cards. And then the ones on the right are kind of a mixture of things from just kind of random companies that I don't even know what they were from. And then I have the ton sequins down on the bottom. So again, these are really great storage solutions for your sequins. The bead container is a really good price, and you get a lot of use out of these. Now this bead container you can also get with larger compartments instead of all the little tiny ones, but I find that these little tiny ones are perfect, and I never have ended up needing the larger compartments. Okay, next tip. I find that having pre-cut card bases is so handy. It saves me time from having to cut something down when I'm working on a project. I can just grab a card base and go. So this is something I've started to incorporate into my craft room. However, I needed a way to be able to organize this. So in comes another InterDesign storage container. This one does not have any dividers in it, and it's a little over half the size of the fridge bins that have the divider down the center. And in it, I put my pre-made card bases. And I'll eventually end up sorting these by color once I have them all cut down. But right now I haven't gotten very far, as you can see. But I have gotten quite a few of them cut. So what I like to do is I like to create a variety of both top folding and side folding card bases, because I use those both quite a lot. I use the top folding most of all, so I'll end up probably cutting more of those than I do the side folding. But it's nice to have both, so that way as I need them, I have them on hand. Here's an example of a colored card base. I just cut it down, scored it, and then I'll start organizing these into this container. Here you can see I've got quite a few already. These are things that I've either cut down or I had made from another project and I never ended up using. And then I also have some pieces of 8.5 by 11 cardstock that I've already cut down, and I'll just need to score these and put these into my container here. But this is a really great way to store your card bases, and I just stick this on my shelf in my studio, and it's easy to just grab a card base and move on to making my card. I don't have to spend the time looking for the cardstock, cutting it down, scoring it, and then attaching it onto my card. I can just grab and go. Now that same bin that I used for the card bases, I use for watercolor paper. Because I also find that cutting down watercolor paper to more manageable sizes is really handy, because I buy the big packs, the ones that are like 11 by 14. So they're of course really big, and I need a way to be able to store them nice. However, I find that being able to cut them down and then sorting them by types of watercolor paper is super handy for me, in that I can just grab and go like I do for the card bases, and I don't have to worry about cutting paper down and then worrying about where I'm going to store the other scrap. I usually would try to store it inside the paper pad itself, but they always end up falling out anyway. So it was always kind of annoying. So I find that this solution has been wonderful, and I really love it. And then I also have room on the end to be able to store scraps. I've got some random pieces of watercolor paper and then some scraps of the watercolor paper that I normally use. And then I also have some other watercolor products here on the side. These are some little art deck books from Cosmo Cricut. So this is another really great storage solution for storing watercolor paper and also card bases like I showed in the previous clip. Now, embroidery floss is something I use quite often, especially when I'm either creating with the Simon Says Stamp plush dies, or if I'm adding stitching detail to a project, or if I need embroidery floss to create a balloon string, all sorts of different things. So I find that using the Doris Floss and Needlecraft Organizer has been perfect for me to be able to store my embroidery floss and keep it organized. So here's the container, and you can see it's got quite a few compartments and dividers, really handy. And I end up storing my embroidery floss onto plastic cards. You could use paper cards, but I found some plastic cards at my local craft store, and I find they hold up much better than the cardstock ones. So all I do is I just wrap the embroidery floss around my plastic card, and that keeps it neat and tidy, so that way it doesn't make a mess in my container. You can see I've got all of my colors of embroidery floss in this container, and I still even have some room on the left-hand side to be able to store my needles. That was really handy for me because I can keep everything all in one place. I'm very organized. I love to label things, organize things, keep things nice and neat. It's just something I can't not do. Can't work in a mess. So I love to organize things by types. I like to organize things by colors, and I like being able to have dividers and labels for everything. So I've got here some dividers that I made from some laminating paper and some cardstock. I cut down cardstock to 8.5 by 5, and then I put 2 of them into a laminating pocket, and then ran that through my laminator, and then all I had to do was trim them down, and I had these great little dividers that I can stick inside my interdesigned storage bin in between the different types of products that I want to be able to label. So I do this for stamp company. I organize my stamps by stamp company. I organize my dies by type. Now I need to label everything, of course, so for this I use my P-Touch Brother Label Maker. I love this label maker because it is so handy and so easy to use, and really quickly I can create labels for anything I need. These label makers require a cartridge. So this one here is the 1/2-inch white laminated label, and it's a cartridge that has all that label tape inside here, and then you just insert it carefully into your label maker, just like this, and then you'll be able to go ahead and start printing your labels. Now this is battery operated, as you can see, but to save on batteries, I just use the wall outlet that comes with it. When I'm ready to use it, I just plug it into the little hole there along the top and then into my wall. Now you can get different label cartridges in different sizes. I was showing you there how you can interchange 2 different types of labels very quickly and easily. And all you do is snap the lid back on and you're ready to go and start printing more labels. And I find that each label cartridge lasts a really long time. I can create tons and tons and tons of labels before the cartridge ends up running out. So it's definitely a good investment and cost effective. Now, like most of you, I'm sure, I have a ton of little things that just kind of really need to be contained. And I find that having small containers to be able to contain those small things are really handy. InterDesign makes small containers just like this one here, and it's really handy for storing small product that you need to be able to keep contained. Here are 2 examples of product that I store into small InterDesign containers. My other embossing powders that I don't reach for every single day are stored in this container here. It's very handy. All I have to do is dig through here to find the ones that I want, and then I can go ahead and keep on crafting. I also store things like these Nouveau embellishment mousse jars into my containers as well. I've also got some perfect pearls in here too. These containers are really handy for storing a variety of different products. And I have tons of these throughout my craft room, which I use to store small items like these products here. Now another quick tip I want to share with you is how I store my cardstock. Now I store my cardstock into paper containers. You can find paper containers all over the place. These store 8.5 by 11-inch papers, so they're perfect for my Simon Says stamp cardstocks. And I sort my cardstocks by rainbow color, so that way I can quickly find the color that I'm looking for and be able to keep on crafting and not have to spend time searching for something. Believe it or not, sorting it by color is really handy because it saves time from having to actually find the cardstock you're looking for. You can just go to the color group that you know you need. So say, for instance, I want yellow. I'll just go to that middle container there, and I know that that's where the yellow is going to be. And I just go ahead and look for the exact shade of yellow that I want, and off I go to continue crafting. This, I've found, has saved me loads of time in not having to search quite as long for something that I need on my project. Now, if you're looking to store small embellishments, I found that the Craftmate lockable storage containers are super handy for storing small things. These are also perfect for storing sequins, so if you don't want to have something quite like the storage solution for sequins that I showed earlier, these are also just as handy. Now in these containers, I actually store small embellishments and random bits and pieces. So here I've got little rhinestones in this bottom container. Now these containers have a little lockable button here that you hold in as you pull up on the compartment that you want to open. This ensures that your compartments won't open up by themselves and have your little embellishments, sequins, or whatever else you're going to store in these containers fly everywhere, because that is something that would not be fun to have to clean up. So the lockable button there on the side allows you to push it in and pull up on the actual lid of the compartment that you want. It doesn't open up all the compartments. You actually have to pull on the compartment lid to actually open up the container. So for instance, if I hold in that button and I pull up on that one container here with the stars, none of the other compartments will open unless I pull up on them. So this is a really handy way to be able to store small embellishments like sequins or other types of products that you have that are really tiny. Now my final tip for you today is how I store my stamp chamois. Stamp chamois have become really popular because they're a great alternative to baby wipes. However, they can get a little stinky if you leave them closed up. So I find by using a small plastic container, this is just something I found at Target one day, and it's really handy for being able to lay my stamp chamois in here. I lay them in here when they're wet because, of course, the plastic will be able to hold the water that might be in the chamois. And as I'm using it, I can pick it up, clean off my stamp, put it back in the plastic container, and then when I'm done for the day, I can just let those air dry in the plastic container, and they won't create any sort of smell, because if you store these stamp chamois in a container that's closed up, eventually they'll have a little bit of a smell to them, and that's no fun. So I find that storing them this way not only makes them last longer, but it also eliminates the odor that you might end up having with the water kind of stored up inside that stamp chamois and then closed up inside of a closed container. So I hope this video was helpful to you in giving you some quick tips and tricks on ways that you can organize your craft room. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and head on over to the Simon Says Stamp blog where you can get more information on today's video and also links to the different storage containers and solutions that I've shared with you today. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more weekly inspiration, and I will see you again soon.